Hello, I'm Jennifer Bonnier, city producer for the Nashville 48-Hour Film Project, and I want to welcome you to the We Foster Film Nashville 48-Hour Film Project Workshop. This talkback was filmed live in front of a studio audience of aspiring filmmakers preparing to make a short film in just 48 hours during the 2022 Nashville 48-Hour Film Project. Expert filmmakers took time to discuss their approach to making a movie through both technical and creative discussions in their designated craft. We hope this shared information will both educate and inspire you to make your next film. We would love to see you out at one of our events and have you make movies with us right here in Nashville. For more information on the 48-Hour Film Project, please visit us on the web at 48hourfilm.com. And for more information about NECAT's ongoing We Foster Film program, visit us on the web at necatnetwork.org. Our next topic for the We Foster Film Nashville 48-Hour Film Project Workshop is producing with Cameron McCasland.
Hi, I'm Cameron McCasland, NECAT's Director of Content, here to talk to you about producing for the 48-Hour Film Project. It's good to see everyone here in the studio tonight. First, I want to talk a little bit about what this whole workshop is about with We Foster Film. We Foster Film is NECAT's ongoing mission to try to get people trained to make their projects here in Nashville. Foster Dugas was a man who really saw a lot of potential in NECAT and the filmmakers that make up NECAT. Years and years ago, he passed on and left an endowment basically to make sure that we had spaces like this, equipment for people to come out and use it, and just opportunities like this through the Dugas Family Foundation to have workshops and make sure that the studio space is taken care of so we are in a place where we can do that. So we want to thank the Dugas Family Foundation right out the gate for this. And again, just welcome all of our filmmakers here in the studio audience today, as well as people watching at home, to join us at necatnetwork.org, sign up for a class, get started and start making your projects right here in Nashville all the time. So again, I'm Cameron McCasland. I'm here to talk about producing and specifically how to make a movie in 48 hours. That is such a life-changing event for a lot of people, I think. But what I'll say about it is like, I think the very first thing you have to figure out is, why are you doing this? That's important, and it's going to change whether it's your first project or if it's your 10th project. It's a moving target all the time. Maki spoke earlier about how, it's like at some point he wanted to work with 7 actors. He set a goal for that specific project. I think it's important whenever you do these things, no matter what your role is, to set a goal. Like, what is the thing that I'm trying to achieve? And that can be anything from as simple as like, hey, I want to see if I have, any kind of talent in making a movie. It can be like, I just want to spend a weekend with my friends. It's, it can be any number of things of like, I want to see if I can get my dog to act in this movie. I mean, pick a thing and kind of run with it. But I think more than anything else, it's like, as a producer, your role is to be a person who is organized. Above all else, you're going to be in charge of like giving people their designation on the set, kind of what their jobs are going to be, and also like making sure that they are uplifted all the time and that they're on task getting the thing done that they want to do. Kind of what we've talked about in some of these other workshops so far is like kind of breaking down the ego and making sure that people stay in their own lanes. And that's something that we talk about a lot, because it's real easy whenever you see something happening in front of you that isn't the way that you would do it to want to chime in with that. I think the role of producer is very important. I have written, I've produced, I've directed, I've done all of those things, but I take a vastly different approach when I'm the producer versus any of those other spaces, because your goal is not to make the movie that necessarily you want to make as much as the one that the director has set out. Obviously, any movie that you make is made by a team of people. No one person makes a movie. We all know that. But I think it is important to delegate and give someone that ultimate charge of like, hey, this is the person that's going to make that decision. And in most cases, that's going to be the director. Your job as the producer is to keep everybody else on task and to give the information where it's needed. It's not always good for everyone to have all the information. You can cause worry. You can cause delay. If everyone's worried about something that's not their department, that's not going to be helpful for you. So all the information should be coming to you from your department heads whenever you set those people, in their places. But you should be giving the information back to the people that need it and always know where you're at on the timing. So again, when I talk about organization, that comes down to a couple different things. It comes down to paperwork, obviously. One thing that I like to use, I'm a very analog person. So I think in a world where we all use telephones, and I'm not saying don't use your cell phone to be organized, use that too. But on a 48-hour film project, a lot of times you're going to find yourself in places where your batteries are going to run down. You're going to forget to charge your thing. Your schedule that's on there, if you have 3% battery and it goes dead, what's going to happen? So I encourage you all to make sure that you're using things like have that digital copy that's right there you can pull out of your pocket, but have a tangible physical copy on paper that you can always be marking up. I also recommend getting a clipboard. I use a big metal one that's got a fold-out tray, so like as we're doing our paperwork all day, I can lay it in there so at the end of the shoot it's all organized. You've got everybody signing off on your actor releases, your location releases. Any of those things are kind of all there, and as you show up to a place, when you see the actor for the first time, they're going through all that. Now, as the producer, that may be your job, or you may designate someone to do that job. But as the producer, you're responsible to make sure that that job gets done as well as every other job. So as the person that is charged with doing that paperwork starts out, when they hand it to you, you're going back over it with them in that very moment and make sure that everybody is covered. You've got every piece of paper. Because the last thing you want is to get to the end of the weekend and trying to be, oh, so-and-so didn't sign it. I've got to hunt them up. Now, what happens if someone's been out for 48 hours making a movie? Where are they going to be? You ever try to get an actor out of bed after you've kept them awake for 2 days? It's hard. They're not going to answer the phone. It's like they're going to be asleep, and you're going to miss your deadlines. So get it done as you go. Make sure that you're touching all of those different things. So there's some things that you can be doing right now as it leads up to it. Part of being a producer is finding your team. Okay, so it's like you want to start talking up who is going to be doing what for you and how you get that person to your team. A lot of people already like have an idea of like, hey, this is the director I want to work with. Here's some writers. Here's some people that we think are funny. Right now, make sure that they've got those dates locked in. You're double checking with those people. Make sure you've got the weekend off of whatever your day job is to go into these things and that you're available. Know that they have the time set aside to do that. Also, it's a good start doing things like this where you're coming to workshops, you're going to other events, you're going out to see people and just start talking to people. Listen to what they want to be. Listen to what they're trying to do. Because again, if we're talking about the purpose of why we're making this, listen to why they want to make something. And it may be a little different than yours, and that can be okay as long as that's something that you need for the project that you're doing. The great thing about a 48, above all else, is it is such a short window. So if you get into something and you have a really bad time, you're going to know something at the end of that. And it's not the end of the world. As opposed to if you did a feature film where you're going to be there for 3 months, if you know on day 2 that you don't like these people, that is a long 3 months, okay? But for 48 hours, it's not that bad. It really isn't. Like you could put up with anybody for 2 days. It's like even in your worst case scenario. But the goal is not to have people that you don't like work on movies with you. I don't think anybody wants to do that. So right now is a good time to start having those conversations. Ask people what they do. Ask people what they want to be. Ask people where they're going and just all the different ideas that they have and start pulling those people into teams. It's a good time to start now, like going out and have coffees with people, go out to dinner with people, talking up what it is that you could do. Again, when we talk about organization, we're looking at like if we've decided, we've got a person who's going to be a great costume designer, or we've got someone who's going to be a great effects person, it's a good time to start going through those closets and start looking at all the things that they have available to them. If you've got a costume designer and they have a endless wardrobe, well, then you could start looking at that and going, okay, if we draw Western, we've got these costumes that we can use. If we pull sci-fi, we've got these costumes that we can use. Start making lists, and again, start taking photographs. Put all that stuff in a digital file, like a Google Drive or Dropbox kind of situation. That way everybody on your team can be looking at it. But also start making checklists about things you have access to. Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker, wrote a really great book called Rebel Without a Crew when he made his movie El Mariachi. And the whole way that he went about making that film was he made a laundry list of here's all the things I have access to. I have this little town down in Mexico. I have these cameras from the University of Texas. I have, these rubber guns or whatever that I can use in these space. Start making those lists now because you may not use everything that's on those lists, but you're already going to kind of know like so-and-so has this and I know I can borrow it. But don't wait till the day before or the day of to call them and say, hey, can I borrow, that cowboy hat that you have? Call them months ahead of time and say, hey, we may need you. I may need to come out and pick that up. Are you still okay with this happening? Start having those conversations now. when you go to your favorite coffee shop, start letting them know, like, hey, the weekend of this, we're doing the 48. Would it be cool if we came in and do a scene? Let them know now. That way you're not springing on it at the last minute, because if you spend Friday night and you've written up your scene and it all takes place at the coffee shop and you're calling them and they say, oh, no, sorry, we've got an event that Saturday, but you didn't know that was happening, and now you're scrambling to get to a place that will work for the scene that you already wrote. The more you can plan ahead now, the better off you are. That comes with people, places, things. And again, write all this stuff down, whether it be digital or with pen and paper, but print a copy of all that stuff to keep with you at all time in that clipboard as you're going about that. So we want to talk about who your team leader is going to be, a representative that's going to go to the kickoff event, make sure that they get all of the rules that are in place there. I recommend, it's like, make sure it's someone who already has the day set aside for that. If the kickoff event is happening right after you get off work and you're going to fight traffic, that could be a bad time for you. So I would say it's always good to have a backup plan as well, have multiple people that can be in that space, but have someone that's designated who's planning on being there early, whether it's you, and I think it should be you if you can make it happen, but if not, make sure it's someone that's also very well organized, that has a game plan, and be checking in with them. It's like, kind of let everyone know, hey, I'm leaving my house now, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm in the parking lot. I know today it's like there's some people who had never been to NECAT before, and it's like they spent some time just trying to get to the building. If this was the day of, you would have lost 20 minutes or half an hour just trying to, find where the set was. It's good to go ahead of time and kind of, walk through the spaces. Make sure everyone has a map to it, has directions to it, and has that call sheet all put together. Because again, like, you don't necessarily, like, not everybody on your team is going to know everybody on day one. You just want to make sure that there's an easy way for them to get access. And again, it's all coming through you. They can call you, but also have a backup person, someone who's assisting in taking those phone calls. And if you can, have a home base where no matter what, there's always someone by a telephone in a space that they can call and say, they're at this place, this is where they're at. And keep checking in with that person who can just kind of keep pointing people to where people are, especially if you're moving locations a lot. I think that that's super important. I know this year, Friday, August 26th at 6 p.m., they're at the back lot for the kickoff. Again, plan ahead for that. Make sure that you know where that space is. It's a good thing now to maybe take a drive by there. Just drive by in your car. Go eat lunch in that neighborhood one day. That way you can see, like, here's the roads that are to get there. Here's where the parking is. Here's the space that we're going to be at. Know ahead of time where you're going to be at, and let your team know. Make sure that they have really clear directions on how to get there. If you've ever made up a call sheet before, or if you've ever received a call sheet, there are good ones and there are bad ones, okay? Some people can just put an address and you just assume that Google Maps or Apple Maps or any one of those things is going to get you where you're going. But the truth of the matter is, there are times, even in this great city that we live in, where you don't always have the best service, okay? So make sure that they have something tangible ahead of time where they know where it is. It's near this. Give them some points. That way you can at least go find them, whether that be on your location on the movies or just for the kickoff event. I think that that's important. So you're not going to know what your genre is until the night of. So you can do all this planning ahead of time, and you can do all this stuff, but until you draw that card, you don't know exactly what it is. So you also want to make sure that you've got people that are diverse in the roles that they can play. You probably already have a team of actors, but it's like if you pull musical and nobody can sing, well, you got to make sure that they're willing, to lean into that. And the funny thing is, like, maybe that's where you go, hey, our movie is about making a musical where it's all off key, and you just got to roll with that. I know we talk a lot about, like, when it comes to movies, it's like everybody wants to go with who can make the biggest and best looking production, okay? And I think it's great advice, again, to, like, look at all these spaces that people have, all the things they have access to. But also I would say, don't be afraid of lo-fi in a lot of ways. So if you decide that, like, hey, I've got to make this thing, we don't have a car, we'll build one out of cardboard. You can build an airplane out of cardboard. Now, like Jennifer said before, you can't go to the airport necessarily and do that, but I think you can build it up in that way and, like, make something lo-fi. But what you have to remember is, like, whenever you put something like that together, you can't usually jump from one to the other. If you have something that looks big and bad and then all of a sudden you pull up in a cardboard car, it's going to look really terrible. But if the entire movie is you driving around in that cardboard car, that can be funny or endearing. So really think about what you can do, and don't be so beholden on the idea of, like, oh, we have to make this big, splashy, Hollywood-looking with sometimes whenever you have, like, a small group of guerrilla filmmakers the way you will be, it's important to just kind of lean into the talents that you have. So again, it's like if you've got an artist that has a really, it's like if they're already doing something in their personal life, like actors that have, personas that they're putting out through social media or other projects that they've made, lean into those things. Above all else, watch the things that all these people have made and see where their talents are. Some of you, it's like you may have made half a dozen things with these people already, but some of you are going to be meeting these people for the first time. But if you say, hey, have you made anything else? Have you ever been in anything else? Watch the projects that they've been in and see what they're good at. And again, lean into that. Make sure your writers are also watching that so they kind of know how they can help with those characters, and have all those conversations as early on as you can. So we talk about like hitting the ground running and like making sure that we are getting to the spaces that we're going to be. But we also want to make sure that we have like put in place for our team to succeed, okay? So again, a lot of, we talk about ego, as a producer, you kind of almost have to learn to talk to people. And sometimes what people need is a pat on the back and an encouragement. There's other people that need you to be very stern with them to get the thing that you want to be. Part of that is like learning that personality and knowing where to push and who to push and when to push. But above all else, it's like you want to make sure that your team is taken care of. So, and that can be big things and small things. It's like making sure that you've put places together where they can go to the bathroom. Make sure that you've ordered all that food and put it in place and you know exactly what they're going to be eating, and the food is going to be arriving on time. I would encourage you all to talk to people about any kind of dietary restrictions and make sure that they have things that are going to fuel them. If you eat pizza for 48 straight hours, you're going to be very sluggish by day 2, I promise you. So like, think ahead towards that. Make sure that they're getting things inside of them, that they're hydrated above all else, they're drinking water. Go around and just make sure people are doing that. And also be responsible for making sure those water bottles don't end up in your shots, because that tends to happen a lot too. I would say above all else though, it's like nutrition is killer on these things. I mean, like, because the thing that you feed the people really is going to dictate how they are reacting. And on a 48-hour project, you're pushing people to their limits, okay? You want to make sure that they have things inside them that are making them feel better, and also that you're giving them time to rest, because here's what can happen on Friday night or Saturday sometimes. You get such a high from making this. All these endorphins pop up, and you're feeling so good about the thing because you're creating. It's like that's such a great feeling. And what happens? You don't want to go to bed. You want to stay up and you want to talk about how cool this is and like how you're having the best time of your life, and how all of, it's like, this is magical and we're going to take this to 58 film festivals after this is done, and we're going to get a Hollywood contract and all those other things. The daydreaming portion of it happens on every one of these sets. I promise you. You're going to hear it on your set. But here's the thing. Go to bed, okay? When you can go to bed, go to bed. If you have half an hour in between and they're like, hey, we don't need you for 30 minutes, go find a corner and take a nap. Get your rest where you can. That way you can give your best whenever you're on. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get hurt. And again, it's like there's a pride sometimes I think that people take in like, oh, I was up for 26 hours straight. And it's like, and I get it. I've been there. I've done it myself. But it's not always the best way to go. And as a producer, you want to make sure on your schedule that you're giving everybody that time. Everybody goes into this knowing this is going to be a long weekend. But you also want to take the approach of like, hey, for safety's sake, we want to make sure that this person is home by this time. So we need to get their scenes done. So whenever your director's like, no, that's not right, we're going to do it this take and this take. And by the time you're on take 10, you got to like lean into him and say, hey, we got to move on. We've got to keep this thing moving. Just make sure that you're protecting everybody, not just your director, but all the people, that are in that space. Again, we want to make sure that we're not overstepping. Again, as a producer, your job is to take care of everybody on your team. All your department heads are getting the things that they want, and they're communicating with you. They feel they can come to you and say, hey, I need more time on this, or this didn't work out. We need to come up with an alternative. Your job at that point is to start making those phone calls, getting those people that basically can move heaven and earth and get you the thing you want. If you need to sew something up and no one brought needles and thread, you almost need to have someone who can go run and do that you can call, or you're the person that's going to be running and making that thing happen. Or you have to decide like, okay, well, they're in a tank top now because the sleeve's ripped and we need to write that into the scene to make it work. But come up with alternatives. Be someone that listens, and whenever those frustrations happen, and they will, whenever someone is, like if your director comes to you, they're not getting the thing they want, figure out what it is they really want and figure out the best way to coax them through it. Figure out how you can like help solve the problems, because with a producer, that's pretty much all you're doing. Your time management and your problem solving. That's basically what the job is over and over again. And the more you can organize leading up to that, the better off you're going to be. Again, we talked about food. We talked about hydration. It's, paramount that we get to those things and make sure that, like, meals land on time. There's a tendency to work through everything, and there will be some of that. So, like, a lot of times if you have a table that's kind of set to the side where anybody can grab, a energy bar, they can grab a handful of grapes, or they can grab a bottle of water and do it in between those takes, put it close by where you're at. That way they don't have to, like, go to another space that takes them off the set. Just have it right there close by when you can. You want to put out your fires efficiently, okay? So whenever you start to see other people argue, you almost have to separate them, okay? And sometimes it's like having two conversations with two separate people is faster than having one conversation with both of them at the same time. Because you need to figure out what do they both want, and then be the communication in between that says, hey, this is what we're trying to do. I know you feel this way. I'm going to work on that, but we're going to move on to the next portion of this because we're lacking in time. You have to be the one person who everyone trusts. That way, they may not always walk away from those conversations feeling like they got everything they wanted, but they should have an understanding from you how that kind of went down. We want to make sure we're not interrupting our director with issues that basically you could solve yourself. So again, this goes back to what I was talking about at the start. Sometimes you don't want your director to know everything that's going on behind the scenes because they don't need to worry about that. They need to worry about what's happening in front of the camera. And if so-and-so isn't showing up with the food, or maybe a prop isn't working exactly how it should, you're working behind the scenes to make that go. You don't even need to, like, let them know that happens sometimes to the premiere. And it's kind of funny. They go, oh, I didn't know that happened. But truly, the more you can protect that person, I think the better off you are at those times. But I've talked a whole lot at this point. Do I have any questions from the audience? Yes.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was just curious if you had any experiences of, I don't know, just kind of unexpected little tips in your experience. Like for me, for instance, I found out kind of by accident that getting the little bottles of water was much better than getting the full-size bottles of water because I'm not dumping out empty or half-empty water bottles, and then, but I don't know. So that was like one thing that I found out, but I don't know if there anything like that seemed kind of like simple, but this will actually save you some time.
I think that's a great thought because a lot of times you walk down a grocery aisle and you say, I can buy all these big waters and it's a little bit cheaper than if I buy all these small waters. But the thing is, if you buy big water, no one's going to drink it all at once. Or if you spend a little bit more for the little tiny ones, everyone's drinking them all the time. They're going away. They're getting thrown in the trash. But also everyone's staying hydrated. That is a good place to spend an extra $5, I think. So, but I do think that you will run into all kinds of things, and what you have to figure out is what are little things that you can let go of, and what are big things that you have to take care of. What it boils down to is whatever ends up on screen is what's going to count for that weekend. When it comes to your movie existing. But I would say more so, what's going to matter is how people feel about you as a producer whenever they leave that space, because reputation is everything. And so if they had a great time while they're doing that, they're going to want to come back and work with you again. They're going to want to come back to the 48 and do another 48 again. So I think it's real big to don't sweat the small stuff in a lot of ways, but also know that it is your job to be sweating the small stuff and making those decisions, whether it comes to water bottles or if you know that your director has a very specific thing that they want to do with a prop and the prop's not working, you're going to be the one that has to break that news to them. So come with a solution as best you can and say, hey, maybe you got to take some time. Either we need to get with our writers and rewrite this, or we need to get with our cinematographer and figure out how we can shoot this where you don't see the big monster, you only see the teeth kind of thing. I think that's super important. Anybody else? Yes.
So what's one of your fears? As a producer, there's a lot that's riding on your shoulders. What's a fear that you have that's specific to the 48, and how do you prepare yourself to ensure you don't get...
My biggest fear as a producer is safety all the time. It is, above all else, no one should ever walk away from this injured, either physically or mentally, okay? So you don't want to run a set where you're yelling at people. You don't want to be putting people in situations where they do have to work 26 hours and then expect them to drive home. It is more important than anything else that we all leave these things unscathed with good memories and good thoughts. So I think you have to look at that above all else. When you see someone that is too tired, just know that sometimes it's more important to tell them to go sit down and drink a bottle of water than it is to get to the next shot. The sun's always moving, and it's going to keep going. But it would be sinful almost to like choose your movie over the safety of any one person. So you want to make sure that you're covering all your safety departments. If you're dealing with firearms, you've got a firearm inspector. If you're dealing with animals, that you've got someone there that is responsible for that animal. All the things that we went through these last couple of years with COVID, it's like a person that was just working through those restrictions. That way no one gets hurt. Again, above all else, it's like your movie is important. Your movie is going to last. I understand that. But the people that are making that are so much more important than any one film that's getting made that weekend. Anybody else? Okay. So again, just running back to this real quick, whenever we get to Sunday, we want to make sure that if you're still shooting, that you're wrapping it up. You want to make sure that you've tied up all the loose ends. All your paperwork is taken care of. You've signed it, you've scanned it, you've uploaded it. And again, it's like I encourage you, if you can get one person designated for that is their job, put them on it, and you be the second set of eyes to make sure that thing happens. You have to know your day's plan. We've already got organized. We know where the shooting is going to happen. We know when the food is coming and what it's going to be. We know who our editors are. We know who our music people are, and that you're communicating with them because, like, your writers may not be on the set with you. Your editor may not be on set with you. But you need to let them know, like, hey, footage is coming over. Make sure that someone's there to accept it so we can get back on the task that we're at. Make sure that your music composer has given you options. That way you don't get to the last day and they go, well, this is what it is, and you got to deal with it because it's the only one that I made. Make sure that they're giving you different things to look at. And again, that like be the person that is there patting all the people that are making decisions on the back to let them know, like, hey, we can make this work. It may not work out exactly how you wanted it, but this movie is still going to work. That's going to happen. I promise you, no movie comes out exactly out of your head onto camera the way that you thought it was going to be. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. That's the beauty of having all these lovely people around you with good ideas. Listen to them, but again, it's like be the person as a producer that is getting, basically strained through. They're bringing it to you, you're taking it to the people, and sometimes you have to be the one that decides, like, hey, that's a great idea, I'm going to take that to this other department. Sometimes you just need to go, that's a great idea, but for another movie and another weekend, and say, but we should talk about that afterwards. Next week, let's get coffee and talk about the next movie that we're going to make. I think that's super important. Any last questions before we wrap this one up? Again, I'm Cameron McCasland. I'm so happy to have everyone here, and I'll see you on the next one.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion on We Foster Film, Nashville 48-Hour Film Project. We want to thank all of our sponsors who make the 48-Hour Film Project possible. We especially want to thank the Degas Family Foundation for helping us make this program possible. We Foster Film is named in loving memory of Foster Degas, who loved movies, monster makeup, Halloween, and all things creative. We are constantly thankful for the impact he has had with NECAT and his ongoing legacy of creative and technical educational programming. To learn more about We Foster Film and NECAT, please visit us on the web at necatnetwork.org. To learn more about the Nashville 48-Hour Film Project and how you can make a movie in a weekend, please visit us at 48hourfilm.com. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Bonnier. Goodbye.